It's that time again. We're here, Millennial Movers, part of the Millennial Movement series. I am Chastin J. Miles, Dallas real estate agent. And thank you for checking out this podcast. Thank you for watching this video. I'm super excited to bring you another episode of the Millennial Movement. So we are going to this week talk about closing costs, which is a big thing, but specifically closing costs for buyers. So if you're looking to purchase a home, what a closing cost is, what it involves, and all that good stuff. So stay tuned because we're gonna dive right into it. And I am back here, part of the Millennial Movement series, and we're here talking about closing costs. I am your host and Dallas, Texas real estate agent, Chastin J. Miles. Super excited to be back. I haven't been recording this episode in a few weeks now. Had a lot of things come up, but I'm so happy to finally be getting back into the groove and to the swing of things. Something that you'll notice if you've been to my website lately, I have launched a whole new, brand new website, and it's just at chastinjmiles.com. Has a lot of good things, has all my articles, all my videos, pretty much anything you can want. And for those real estate agents out there that listen to my show and watch my videos, there's a lot of resources for actual agents too, as well as the general public. So it's kind of a one-stop shop for everyone, and I'm super excited about it. I hope you can get a chance to check it out and let me know what you think. There are a few places where you can leave me comments on the articles, join any of my mailing lists, check out my products, all that good stuff. And speaking of products, if you don't know it by now, or you haven't seen any advertisements or anything, I did release a book, and it's called More Than Four Walls. Actually got notification yesterday that it is on the I got it accepted into a few more stores. So you can find it on my website, chastinjmiles.com, or you can go on Amazon, Barnes & Noble if you want a Kindle or a Nook version. It is available in those formats as well as a hard copy. But I will tell you one thing. If you do order it off of my website, I will sign it for you before I put it in the mail for you. So that's super exciting. I'm super stoked about that. I've worked on the book for a really long time, and it's a great resource for not just buyers but for sellers as well. I talk about myself, how I got started. I also give buyer and seller tips when you are getting into real estate and wanting to start selling homes or buying homes. And then I also talk about real estate agents. So it's a great all-around resource for just any type of information. I think it's a pretty easy read. I didn't make it too long, and I spent maybe around about 8 months or so writing it. So I did put time into it to hopefully bring you a great resource. All right, so that's pretty much all I had to say about those two things. So now on to our actual topic for this week, which are closing costs. So what do I have to say about closing costs? Well, so much goes into actual closing costs, and the biggest thing that I like to point out is when you are deciding to purchase or to sell a property, there are going to be closing costs involved. For this episode, we are going to focus more on the buyer's closing costs though. So something that a lot of buyers don't know is that there are actual closing costs involved for buyers in a real estate transaction. So a lot of buyers think that when they're looking to purchase a home that they'll only have to bring their down payment to the closing table, and that's not necessarily true. So buyers do have closing costs that that they have to bring to closing on top of their down payment. Depending on how much the actual property is, that can determine what your closing costs will be. But buyers, you do have closing costs. If you take a look on my website, I actually have a few different things. Well, I wrote an article actually called "What Are Closing Costs When Buying a Home?" But in that article, I have what's called a closing disclosure. Basically, a closing disclosure. You might get it when you start the process from your lender, and then you're going to receive, definitely here in Texas, you're going to receive a closing disclosure 3 days before closing, and it's going to, like I said, outline all of your charges, all of your buyer credits, all of your buyer debits, any other credits that you may be receiving, all that good stuff. So it's going to really have the breakdown of each closing cost. So you're going to see things like loan origination, and you're going to see other fees. What I encourage you to do is definitely look at that chart that's on my website, and I'll put a link with this video. But I mean, things like underwriting fees, appraisal fee, credit report fee, anything that you've had to pay for as a buyer that's going to be charged to you at closing is going to be on this document. What I would recommend, though, to kind of get an estimate of what you're going to be looking at, I would recommend requesting one of these up front or kind of early on in the process so that you can kind of know what your closing costs are going to be, because you're going to need to have this money in your bank account, or you're going to have to be gifted some money so that you can afford your closing costs. Now, aside from down payment, closing costs is one of those charges. And if you think that it might be an issue for you, you can also request that the seller pay for your closing costs. Now, the only thing with this is you must keep in mind that the sellers have their own closing costs as well. But it is one of those things that can be negotiated in a contract. So in the actual contract here in Texas, you can request that a seller pay your closing costs. And depending on what type of loan you're getting, they can pay a certain percentage of those closing costs. I would recommend speaking with a lender so that you can know how much a seller can pay for your closing costs. But it is one of those negotiated things. So I have seen in situations when, if you listen to the previous episodes when I talked about VA loans and USDA loans, I've worked with buyers who have basically went to closing without having to bring any money because they had zero down payment, and then they didn't have to bring any, they got their closing costs paid for by the seller, so they didn't have to bring any closing costs to closing. So they were just signing on the dotted lines, and they walked away with keys. And I've also had situations where buyers have walked away from closing with money. So that can happen, but it's going to come down to what you actually negotiate in the contract. Okay, so when you go to closing, just to recap, you're going to have your down payment, which can be whatever, 0%, 3.5%, 5%, 20%. It just depends on what type of loan you're actually getting. And then your closing costs are aside from your down payment. So these are all going to be paid at closing. And closing is that last day that you go and sign all the documents. That's when you're going to bring the money order, or you're going to get a wire sent to the title company, or you're going to bring whatever certified funds for these dollars amount. So again, I recommend speaking with a real estate agent or speaking with a lender to kind of know what your closing costs may be looking at on the buyer side. Sellers have a totally different set of closing costs. So when you are going in asking for closing costs in a transaction, just be mindful that they don't have to pay your actual closing costs, and it's one of those negotiated things. Visit my website, chastinjmiles.com, and check out the article. It is under buyers. So if you check out my blog and look under the buyers category, you're going to see this article where, again, I have charts of what you can see, where it breaks down the actual closing costs and things like that. Thank you for tuning in. Again, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate you. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel and continue to promote my videos. I see your comments and I see your likes and shares, and I truly, really do appreciate it. And again, check out my new website. I worked really hard on it, and there's some great content, and I look forward to being back here with you soon.